Good morning. Thank you for joining us at the 2022 edition of the HorseTech conference. My name is Charlotte and I'm a PhD researcher in equine data science at the University of Nottingham. Today, while the Cheltenham Festival is in full swing, I'll be sharing with you some insights on the latest racehorse physiology research. Our study group, as you can see, is quite international and pluridisciplinary. David Gardner, my supervisor, is a professor of physiology at the Vet School of Nottingham. For the last 2 years, we've been collaborating with Guillaume Dubois, scientific director at Arioneo, a company that developed equine connected devices, which I believe Roman has previously introduced. And last but not least, Dr. Emmanuel Van Erck strengthens our team as a leading specialist in equine sports medicine based in Belgium. Now, if we're all here today, us as speakers or you as equine professionals, it's because the equine athlete is central to everything we strive to do. For centuries, researchers and practitioners have been looking for new ways to approach training, equine management or care. The thoroughbred racehorse, with its unique physiological adaptations, continues to fascinate and challenge us in many ways. Amongst other aspects, its superior speed, oxidative threshold, and circulatory responses to exercise makes it a fascinating animal to study. Despite much progress in the understanding of equine sports performance, training practices remain predominantly grounded in tradition, experience, observation, and the rider's feedback, rather than evidence-based principles of performance. However, in the last decade, there has been a rise of validated tools to evaluate the horse's response to exercise in both the treadmill or field environment. The Televet and Polar systems, which were the first validated devices to be commercialized. Similarly, the Equimetre technology has recently been developed and integrates all of these parameters and more, such as the heart rate, stride, GPS, ECG, plus additional information on heart rate variability. It is clear that the technology is now available to objectively monitor several aspects of a racehorse cardiovascular response to a given exercise, together with its rate of recovery, characteristics of locomotory function such as stride length or frequency, and speed before, during, and after exercise. Yet, to the best of our knowledge, no studies have addressed this. Therefore, we believe this is the first multinational, observational, and retrospective study of its kind. To conduct this first study, we used datasets from major racing yards in both Australia and France, where racehorses were exercised according to the established practices of the trainers. A total of 509 thoroughbreds ranging from 2 to 9 years of age of varying sex participated in this study. Horses completed a total of 1,124 and 6,016 training sessions respectively, taking place at different centres and on different racetracks such as sand, fibre or turf. Data collection occurred between 2018 and 2020, during which the Equimetre fitness tracker recorded racehorse heart rate, stride, speed during and after exercise. Now, for the purpose of this talk, I won't be going into detail on the different statistical tests that were conducted. But in order to compare both the French and the Australian dataset, exercise intensity needed to be standardized. To ensure data-led classification of work intensity, we divided the best 200, which refers to progressive speed, into 6 categories referring to slow, medium, hard canter or gallop. The same logic was then applied to the French cohort. The first aspect we explored was the effect of racetrack surface on racehorse physiology. So far, research has shown that the racetrack alters locomotion, hoof movement and stride, while racetrack properties affect limb loading and can lead to injuries. Our results showed that regardless of the intensity of the training session, speed was slower and stride length was reduced on sand compared to turf in both countries. Now you can see that in graph in figure A and B for speed and in figure C and D for stride length. However, recovery of heart rate at 15 minutes was not different on any of the two surfaces. Our findings are particularly relevant as they outline how a trainer can optimize training on the horse's preferred surface. From a fitness point of view, this study shows that a trainer can adapt the type of work and rate at which the horse reaches cardiac training zones. We were then interested in further understanding the racehorse's cardiovascular responses to training. We know that heart rate peak is a useful indicator to establish training zones or individualize workload or intensity by taking the percentage of peak heart rate, for example. We noticed that as the intensity of the training session increased, so did the recorded heart rate peak, but it appeared to plateau during soft gallop in France versus hard canter in Australia. Analysis of rate of recovery suggested horses achieved greatest cardiac flexibility during hard canter in Australia and soft gallop in France. Now, we appreciated that the training strategies in Australia differed to those in France, implying that Australian horses were trained potentially harder than in France, but more consecutive and standardized training data would be necessary to suppose a signal of improved fitness. To complement this first study, we asked ourselves whether sex of the jockey could have any effect on racehorse speed or stride. All being equal, would a racehorse during race pace workouts perform any differently when ridden by either a female or a male jockey? This was particularly of interest to us and topical given recent female jockey achievements in both Australia and the UK. For the study's purpose, data from 103 work riders, of which 66 were male and 37 were female, current or past registered professionals from one major racing yard in Australia was obtained. Our findings showed that female riders completed a higher proportion of the total number of training sessions in this cohort, which was 52.4% of the total training sessions. Additionally, we observed that there was no effect of sex of rider on speed, and by speed we refer to the mean time taken to cover a furlong, nor stride length on either turf or sand. Heart rate peak was not significantly different according to the sex of rider. However, the rate of recovery, which we refer to as delta heart rates, appeared influenced by sex of the rider on turf but not on sand. That is, for the relatively slower training sessions conducted on turf, then horses appeared to recover faster with a male rider on board. Overall recovery of heart rate, which is the heart rate area under the curve, referring to figures C and D, was influenced by the sex of the rider, but only at certain training intensity and on specific track surfaces. Male riders influenced racehorse heart rate recovery during the training intensities rarely, but not unusually conducted on either training surface. So that was then during steady canters on turf, where most gallops occur, or during hard gallops on sand, where most canters occur. Now, the relevance of our findings suggests that female jockeys push horses just as hard as male jockeys. The influence of male riders on racehorse heart rate recovery at training intensities not directly associated with usual track is surprising. Could male work riders, more so than female, anticipate the expected training intensity on a given surface, and that higher or lower heart rate be transmitted faithfully to the horse? This could be addressed in future work. The study has several limitations which should be acknowledged. First, there is a risk of selection bias due to the method of convenience sampling. And secondly, the study design was retrospective and descriptive, and as a result, there are missing data for some riders and horses, along with other variables that have not been considered, such as riders' weight. There are potentially other variables associated with the horses that we may have not been able to account for that may influence an individual racehorse's response to training, such as fitness level of the horse or pedigree information. Future studies of similar nature could explore such data in other geographical settings or even compare racing strategies across male versus female jockeys. Objective data can now help us understand the way the horse's body responds and adapts to exercise, where it excels or where it doesn't, and what factors such as racetrack surface can influence its work. The benefits for the racing industry are multiple, from unlocking athletic performance, guiding decision-making, to minimizing injuries. The science is now clear. Female jockeys are just as good as male jockeys. So it's time to embrace equal opportunities across the racing industry, recognize equal athletic potential of rising and promising female jockeys, and promote fair competition in the sport. Full publication details are summarized on this slide. The first article will be published imminently in the Journal of Comparative Exercise Physiology, while a preprint is available online for the jockey paper. It's currently under review in Scientific Reports Journal, but we've received a significant interest from press entities, so watch this space. Do get in touch if you have any questions or if you'd like to collaborate on similar projects, and I wish you all a fantastic Cheltenham Race Day experience.